The road was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every small sound feel loud. The old truck moved slowly, its engine humming unevenly, as if it was tired too. The single father kept one hand on the steering wheel, and the other resting near the cracked dashboard, where the air vent no longer worked. The fuel gauge sat just above empty, and he kept glancing at it, doing the same math he always did in his head. How far could he go before the truck gave up again? His child sat in the passenger seat, legs swinging slightly, staring out at the endless stretch of land. Fields rolled on both sides of the road, green and wide, broken only by fences and distant trees. It looked peaceful, but peace did not pay bills. The father's mind was heavy with worry. Rent was overdue. The fridge at home was almost empty. Every day felt like walking on thin ice, hoping it wouldn't crack beneath him. He had once been good with his hands. Fixing things came naturally to him. Years ago, he worked steady jobs, repaired engines, welded metal, and solved problems other people walked away from. But work dried up. One bad year turned into another, and suddenly he was picking up small jobs when he could, driving long distances for short pay. Being a single parent made it harder. He couldn't take risks. He couldn't fail. The truck coughed as they drove past a wide open field. He eased off the gas, listening carefully. Then he saw it. A tractor sat still near the edge of the land, tilted slightly like it had given up mid-task. A woman stood beside it, wiping her hands on her jeans. She kicked the dirt once, then leaned over the engine again. Whatever was wrong, it wasn't simple. He slowed the truck without thinking. Helping someone had become a habit, even when he had little himself. Maybe it was stubborn pride. Maybe it was the way he was raised. He pulled over to the side of the road, the tires crunching against gravel. "You okay?" He called out as he stepped down. The woman looked up, surprised at first, then relieved. She nodded once. "Tractor won't start. I thought it was the belt, but it's not that." He walked closer, noticing the grease on her hands, the dirt on her boots. She didn't look helpless, just frustrated. The kind of frustration that comes when you know what you're doing, but something refuses to cooperate. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked. She shrugged lightly. "At this point, I'll take any help I can get." He popped the side panel open and leaned in. The smell of oil and metal was familiar, comforting in a strange way. He listened, touched, checked connections. His child stayed nearby, watching quietly, used to waiting while he worked. The father explained what he was doing in simple words, partly for the child, partly for himself. After a few minutes, he found it. A small part had shaken loose, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. He tightened it with a tool he always kept in the truck. Then he stepped back. "Try it now," he said. The woman climbed up and turned the key. The tractor hesitated, then roared to life. The sound echoed across the field. She laughed, the tension leaving her face all at once. "That was it," she said. "I can't believe it." He smiled, wiping his hands on a rag. "Happens more than you'd think." She climbed down and offered him a bottle of water from a small cooler nearby. He took it, grateful. They stood there for a moment, the tractor humming behind them, the wind moving gently through the crops. "Thank you," she said. "You didn't have to stop." "I know," he replied. "But I've been there. Machines breaking at the worst time." She looked at him closely, not in a judging way, but curious. "You good with repairs?" "Good enough," he said. "Done it most of my life." She nodded slowly, as if filing that away. "I'm glad you came along today." He didn't ask her name. She didn't ask his. It felt unnecessary, like one of those moments that didn't need labels. After a short pause, he gathered his things and headed back to the truck. His child waved shyly, and the woman waved back Dot as he drove away. He glanced in the mirror and saw her return to the field, the tractor moving forward again, cutting clean lines through the land. He felt lighter than he had in days. Helping hadn't fixed his problems, but it reminded him of something important. He still had value. He still knew how to make things work. The road stretched ahead, long and uncertain, but for the first time that morning, he didn't feel completely lost. He didn't know that small stop would change his life. To him, it was just another good eat on a hard day. Nothing more. Or so he thought. A few days later, the single father found himself driving past the same stretch of fields. His old truck rattled along, carrying him and his child to wherever small jobs were available that week. Money was still tight, but the memory of helping the farmer with her tractor lingered in his mind. There was something satisfying in the simplicity of that moment, the problem, the solution, the thanks. It felt like a small victory in a life that often had none. Dot as he rounded a bend. He saw her again, standing near another piece of equipment. This time, it was a small harvester that had clearly seen better days. She looked up as he slowed down and waved. He paused, unsure if he should stop again. Most days, he didn't want to risk time or energy for anyone. But something about her wave felt inviting, not demanding. He pulled over. "Need some help?" he asked, stepping out of the truck. She smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "If you don't mind, I could use it." He nodded and walked toward her. The child followed, curious and quiet, used to watching their parent in action. The harvester was complicated, full of belts, gears, and hidden problems. The father crouched, turning things over in his mind. He asked a few questions, and she explained what had been happening. Unlike many people, she didn't complain or act helpless. She simply stated the facts, letting him figure it out. As he worked. She brought over some tools and helped in small ways, handing him what he needed, tightening a bolt or checking a line. It was a team effort, though he still did most of the mechanical thinking. Hours passed with the sun climbing higher, the day warming. At some point, they both stepped back, wiped their hands, and admired the repaired harvester. It ran smoothly, a testament to patience and skill. "You really know what you're doing," she said, a note of respect in her voice. "Had to learn somehow," he replied. "Life teaches harsh lessons." She laughed lightly. "You could say that again. I've been at this farm for years, but machines don't care about experience. They break anyway." There was an ease to their conversation, a comfort in talking about work rather than personal struggles. Yet beneath the words, the father felt a connection he hadn't expected. He had spent so long moving from job to job, city to city, keeping his child safe, keeping life together. Here, among wide fields and honest labor, he felt useful, valued. The woman offered him a simple lunch from a small cooler she kept nearby. It wasn't much, just sandwiches and water, but the gesture felt genuine. They sat on the edge of the field, watching the wind ripple through the crops. "Do you live around here?" she asked casually. "Not really," he admitted. "Moving from town to town for work. Trying to make ends meet." She nodded, understanding. "It's hard. I've been here my whole life, but even I know how tough it can get." They shared stories of small victories and challenges. He told her about struggles with finding reliable work, about the loneliness that sometimes came with single parenthood. She listened, never interrupting, her gaze steady, encouraging him to keep speaking. It was the kind of attention he hadn't realized. He missed Dot by mid-afternoon. They had finished the repair work. He packed up his tools, ready to leave, but she stopped him. "I know you have your own life to deal with," she said. "But if you ever need a day's work, or just a place to catch your breath, you're welcome here." He felt a flicker of hope. He had grown used to doors being closed, to offers that came with strings attached. This was different. She wasn't asking for anything beyond his effort. It was simple, honest work and respect. He thanked her, feeling gratitude he couldn't put into words. The child ran around the field, picking up small sticks and stones, laughing at the wind in a way that made the father's chest tighten with a mix of happiness and relief. He realized his child hadn't had a day like this in a long time, days where the air felt clean and full of possibility, not just a rush to survive. As they got back into the truck, the woman waved again. "See you soon, I hope," she called out. He waved back, feeling lighter than when he arrived. He didn't know why, but the thought of returning, of being trusted to help, filled him with something he hadn't felt in months. It wasn't money. It wasn't fame. It was simple acknowledgement that his skills, his effort, his presence mattered. Driving back, he thought about the life he had built so far, the struggles, the loneliness, the constant worry. He realized that in the midst of all that, moments like this made the weight bearable. Helping someone, connecting through work, feeling appreciated, those were treasures he hadn't recognized until now. He didn't know much about the woman beyond her immediate struggles with her farm equipment. He didn't know about her family, her history, or the true extent of what she managed. But it didn't matter. Right now, what mattered was trust, mutual respect, and a shared understanding of work and responsibility. For the child, the day was magical. They ran through the fields, discovered tiny insects, laughed at the sound of birds overhead. The father watched, heart swelling. He knew that life could be hard, unforgiving, but he also knew that moments like these could plant hope, even in the smallest hearts. By the time the sun began to dip, they were back on the road. The father's mind wandered to the week ahead, the jobs he needed to find, the bills to pay, the endless struggle. Yet, for the first time, the day didn't feel hopeless. The woman's simple trust, the chance to contribute meaningfully, reminded him that sometimes even a small connection could ignite a spark of possibility. He glanced at the fields as they passed by. The harvester would run now, the crops moving smoothly through its mechanisms, and he had played a part in that. It was enough. It was more than he had allowed himself to feel in a long time. And for his child, it had been a day of laughter and discovery, a rare break from the weight of their life. As they drove, the father realized that helping her wasn't just about the machines. It was about regaining a sense of self, of purpose, of feeling that he could still make a difference, even in a world that often felt indifferent. And though he didn't yet know it, this connection, this act of simple kindness, would eventually lead him into a life that held more than just struggle. It would hold respect, opportunity, and unexpected hope. Over the next few weeks, the single father returned to the farm whenever he could. Each time he arrived, he noticed more about the land and the people who worked there. It was bigger than he had first imagined. Fields stretched endlessly, and workers moved purposefully from one task to another. Everyone seemed to know their place and the rhythm of the farm. The woman still worked alongside them, boots dusty, hands rough, but there was a calm authority in the way people listened when she spoke. The father kept himself busy, repairing equipment, checking engines, and lending a hand wherever it was needed. The child ran freely across the open space, discovering new sounds, smells, and sights each day. There were no walls here, no ceilings to confine them. Just air, sunlight, and land as far as the eye could see. One morning, as he tightened a stubborn belt on a tractor, he overheard a conversation between two workers. They spoke with respect, almost awe, when mentioning the woman. Terms like management, expansion, and long-term contracts came up. He paused, curious, but focused on his work. It didn't make sense yet. She seemed so simple, so grounded, just like the first day he met her. Yet something in the way others spoke hinted at something bigger. After finishing the repair, he approached her quietly. "You run this whole operation?" he asked, unsure how to phrase it. She smiled, a small, knowing smile. "It's more than one machine or field," she said lightly. "There's a lot to take care of." He nodded, trying not to look surprised. The way she carried herself made her seem approachable, humble, ordinary even. He had assumed she was just another hard-working farmer. The idea that she might manage a large operation felt unbelievable. "Must be hard," he said, "keeping track of all this." "Some days it is," she admitted, "but the work is honest. That's what matters." He continued helping her, thinking about the conversations he overheard. There were numbers, plans, and responsibilities beyond anything he had ever imagined. Yet she never acted distant or superior. She treated him as a partner in the work, not as a servant, a worker, or someone in need of charity. That respect struck him deeply. In a world where people often judged based on circumstance, she didn't. The child followed him, picking up small pebbles and throwing them gently into the dirt. They asked questions about the tractors, the fields, and even the workers. He explained patiently, using simple words, sharing not just knowledge, but lessons about care, patience, and respect. He had learned that raising a child wasn't just about feeding and sheltering them. It was about teaching them the value of effort and responsibility, even when life seemed unfair. One afternoon, they worked on a new piece of equipment, one that was completely unfamiliar to him. He examined it carefully, turning over wires and examining gears. She watched him work, offering small suggestions, but mostly giving him space. He realized she trusted him, not just with the machines, but with the work itself, with the success of the farm. That level of trust was rare, and he felt it in his chest like a quiet warmth. By late afternoon, he took a break, sitting on a crate while the child ran toward the small pond at the edge of the property. She joined him, sitting beside him on the crate. They watched in silence for a while, the wind rustling the crops and carrying the distant sounds of machinery. She didn't rush to explain herself, didn't need to. Silence, he realized, could be as revealing as words. "You've got a lot here," he said finally. She nodded. "More than it looks, yes?" He hesitated, then asked, "Does it ever feel overwhelming?" "Sometimes," she admitted, "but I focus on the work in front of me, not the work I can't see. It helps me stay grounded." He thought about his own life, how often he felt buried under the weight of bills, deadlines, and worries. Here was someone managing a huge responsibility, yet still treating him and his child with kindness and respect. It made him reflect on what really mattered, how people treat each other, not just what they own or control. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink, he watched the machinery move smoothly again. The workers heading home, the field settling into quiet. He felt a mixture of awe and humility. He didn't yet fully understand the scale of her world, but he did understand her character. That mattered more than anything. Driving home that evening, the father's mind buzzed with thoughts. He realized that sometimes appearances were misleading. The woman he had assumed was just a farmer with someone who carried enormous responsibility. Yet she remained approachable, kind, and fair. It made him wonder what other lessons were waiting for him in unexpected places. His child fell asleep in the back seat, tired from a day filled with fresh air and new discoveries. He glanced in the rearview mirror, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. Life was still hard, the challenges still waiting. But now there was a spark of realization that even in struggle, there could be moments of connection, learning, and respect. He didn't know that these visits would eventually reveal secrets that could change his life entirely. For now, though, he focused on the present. A child's laughter, a day's honest work, and the quiet understanding that kindness, trust, and effort could bridge worlds in ways he hadn't yet imagined. The farm was bigger than he had thought, and the woman was more remarkable than he could have guessed. But both offered him a glimpse of something rare, a chance to be seen and valued for who he was, not just for what he could do. The morning started like any other, with the father and child driving toward the farm. The truck rumbled along the gravel road, and the sun was just beginning to warm the fields. He felt a quiet anticipation, though he didn't understand why. Maybe it was the familiarity of returning to work that gave him comfort. Or maybe it was the connection he had begun to feel with the woman who had welcomed him without question when they arrived. He noticed a few unfamiliar faces around the farm. A group of sharply dressed people was gathered near the farmhouse, talking in low voices and holding papers and tablets. He assumed they were managers or auditors. The child ran ahead to explore, chasing a butterfly across the morning dew. He followed, unsure what was happening, but trusting the woman's presence to guide him. She appeared shortly after, looking calm and collected as always, even in the presence of the visitors. Her boots were still dusty, and her hands bore the faint marks of labor, but her posture and expression carried authority. The father felt a pang of curiosity. Something about these visitors, their attention to her, suggested there was more to her than he had realized. "Good morning," she said simply, greeting him as if the executives weren't there. She led him toward a piece of equipment that needed repair, the same practical focus she always maintained. He worked quietly, though his eyes kept drifting to the visitors. Occasionally, one would glance at him, and he noticed small nods or subtle acknowledgments. It felt strange. He was just a man doing honest work, yet he could sense the respect in the way they moved around him. Eventually, one of the visitors approached. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Are you responsible for this crew?" "Yes," she replied calmly. "We keep things moving." He could hear their surprise, a faint shift in tone. They were clearly used to people handling work differently. She explained the operations with precision and confidence, outlining schedules, responsibilities, and long-term plans. The father watched, realizing that this woman was not just a farmer in the simple sense he had imagined. She managed something vast, something that required intelligence, organization, an unwavering dedication. After finishing the equipment repairs, he packed up his tools, ready to leave, but the woman waved him over. "There's something I want you to see," she said. He followed her to the farmhouse, curious. Inside, he saw offices filled with maps, contracts, and computers. She introduced him to more staff, and for the first time, he realized the full scale of the farm. This wasn't just a few fields. It was a network of lands, crops, and resources stretching across miles, producing enough to impact the local economy. The realization struck him deeply. The woman he had assumed was simply working hard was in fact a person of immense influence and responsibility. She was someone who could command resources, people, and decisions that affected many lives. Yet she had never treated him differently because of it. She had never used her status to intimidate or impress. She had simply treated him as a capable, hard-working individual. "I didn't know." He started, unsure how to phrase his surprise. "You didn't need to," she said with a gentle smile. "I don't ask for special treatment. I expect effort, honesty, and respect. That's all that matters to me." He nodded slowly, absorbing her words. There was something rare in this approach, someone who held power but did not flaunt it, someone who valued character over status. Later, she offered him a stable job, not as charity, but because she trusted him. She saw his skill, his reliability, and his integrity. He accepted, knowing that this opportunity could provide stability for his child and a chance to rebuild his life. Over the next few weeks, his life began to change. He worked alongside her team, learning new skills, and contributing in ways he never thought possible. The child grew accustomed to the wide open spaces, the rhythm of the farm, and the people who treated them both with kindness. Each day brought new challenges and achievements, a sense of purpose and belonging that had been missing for so long. The father realized that the most important lesson he had learned wasn't about the land or the equipment. It was about the way people could connect, respect one another, and build trust without expectation. The woman had shown him that life could offer second chances, not through luck or charity, but through recognition of effort, honesty, and shared human values. He reflected on his own life, the struggles, and the isolation. He understood now that moments of connection, like those early days repairing the tractor, were far more powerful than material wealth or status. The woman's quiet leadership, her humility, and her genuine care for people had transformed his perspective. One evening, as he walked through the fields with his child, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. The journey had not been easy, but it had brought him to a place where he felt respected, valued, and capable. He understood that kindness and hard work could open doors in ways he had never imagined. And though the challenges of life were still present, he no longer felt alone in facing them. The revelation of her true position had not changed how he viewed her. If anything, it deepened his respect. She remained approachable, grounded, and kind. And he realized that sometimes the most remarkable people are not the ones who boast of their achievements, but the ones who carry great responsibility quietly, while lifting others along the way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the father knew that his life had shifted in ways he couldn't have predicted. What had started as a simple act of helping with a broken tractor had led to a connection that offered hope, stability, and a new beginning for both him and his child. And in that quiet evening, surrounded by fields and the hum of life continuing around him, he felt a profound sense of possibility, knowing that sometimes the right people appear in life at exactly the right time, and their trust can change everything. Life had begun to settle into a rhythm that the single father had never thought possible. Each morning, he woke to the sound of birds and the wind moving through the fields. The truck still rattled along the gravel roads, carrying him and his child to different parts of the farm, but now it felt less like a burden and more like a journey. Work was steady, and the woman who had once needed his help now trusted him with responsibilities that went far beyond repairing machines. He was part of a team, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he belonged. His child had grown more confident, running through the open fields without fear, exploring, laughing, and asking endless questions. They had discovered small creatures, learned about crops, and even helped in minor ways that made them feel important. The father watched quietly, heart swelling with pride. He had worried for so long about not providing enough, about failing his child. But here, in this vast, sunlit land, he realized that value wasn't just in money. It was in time spent, in lessons shared, and in love given freely. The woman continued to lead with calm authority, moving seamlessly between overseeing workers and assisting directly with projects. Her humility and hands-on approach never wavered. He admired her more each day, not just for what she had achieved, but for the way she treated people fairly, honestly, and with respect. She had never asked for special treatment, never flaunted her status. She simply expected effort and sincerity as she gave the same in return. One morning, he arrived at the farm to find a group of visitors waiting. They were officials from a cooperative that worked with several farms across the state. Normally, their presence would have been intimidating, but he noticed something different today. The woman introduced him confidently as a key part of her team, someone who ensured that the work ran smoothly and the operation stayed on track. The visitors looked at him with respect, clearly impressed by his skills and reliability. He felt a mix of humility and pride. No longer was he just a man scraping by. He was someone trusted and valued. Throughout the day, he assisted with more equipment repairs, coordinated small tasks, and even offered suggestions on improving workflow. The woman watched quietly, approving with subtle nods, giving him the confidence to believe in his abilities. He noticed how differently people responded to him now. There was trust and recognition, not pity or judgment. It was a new feeling, one that stirred hope he had not felt in years. As the sun began to dip lower, painting the fields with golden light, the father walked alongside the woman toward the farmhouse. His child skipped ahead, waving at the workers who smiled and waved back. They stopped for a moment by a fence, looking out at the land stretching endlessly before them. He felt a sense of peace, a rare moment in his chaotic life. "I can't thank you enough," he said quietly. "Not just for the work, but for everything. For trusting me, for letting us be part of this." She smiled, brushing her hair back from her face. "You earned it. Effort, honesty, and respect, those are things money can't buy, but they mean everything here." He nodded, understanding deeply. She had shown him that life could offer opportunities, not through luck or inheritance, but through character and action. That lesson was priceless. Days turned into weeks, and life on the farm became a rhythm of meaningful work, discovery, and quiet triumphs. The child learned to care for small animals, helped water crops, and even assisted with minor tasks that brought joy and pride. The father continued to work hard, repairing machinery, managing tasks, and guiding the child through lessons of patience and diligence. Every evening, they returned to their small home nearby, tired but fulfilled, knowing that they had contributed something real. One afternoon, as he was finishing work on a particularly stubborn tractor, the woman approached. She handed him a cup of water and simply said, "I want you to know that what you're doing here matters, not just for the farm, but for everyone involved." He looked at her, struck by the sincerity in her voice. "I never imagined anything like this. I thought I was just passing through, helping when I could." "Sometimes," she said softly, "the right people show up at the right time, and they make all the difference." The father realized she was speaking to him, and not just about work. She was acknowledging the value of his presence, his character, and the love he gave his child. He felt a deep warmth, a sense of being seen and appreciated for who he was. That evening, they walked through the fields together, the child skipping ahead, laughing at small discoveries along the way. The sky was painted with shades of pink and orange, the air cool and fresh. He breathed in deeply, feeling a sense of gratitude he had not allowed himself to feel in years. Life was still challenging, but now it was filled with hope, purpose, and connection. He thought about the journey that had brought him here. It had started with a broken tractor, a simple act of helping someone in need. That act had led to trust, opportunity, and a sense of belonging. It had shown him that the world could be kind in unexpected ways, and that the right people could appear when least expected. It had taught him that his value was not measured by money or status, but by effort, honesty, and the love he shared. The child ran back to him, holding a small bundle of flowers picked from the edge of the field. He smiled, kneeling to take them. "For you," the child said shyly. He accepted them, feeling the simple joy of being appreciated. In that moment, he understood that the future held possibilities he had never imagined. Stability, respect, and the ability to provide for his child were no longer distant dreams. They were real, tangible, and within reach. As night fell, the lights from the farmhouse and the distant barns created a warm glow across the fields. The father held his child close, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment. The journey had been difficult, full of struggles and uncertainty, but it had brought them to a place of hope, security, and connection. He knew that life would continue to have challenges. Bills, responsibilities, and unforeseen problems would always be part of the story. But he also knew that with effort, honesty, and support, those challenges could be met and overcome. He had learned that small acts of kindness, trust, and respect could open doors that nothing else could. The woman had shown him that greatness could exist quietly, without arrogance, and that leadership was measured not by power, but by how people were treated. He had learned that his skills, his integrity, and his love for his child were more valuable than he had ever realized. As they settled for the night, the father looked out at the fields, the tractors resting, the land quiet and peaceful. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the future was brighter than it had been in years. He had found trust, respect, and opportunity in a place he never expected. And he had discovered that life could offer second chances, stability, and hope through honesty and effort. The child slept peacefully beside him, exhausted from a day full of exploration and joy. He watched the child for a moment, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. In that quiet night, surrounded by fields, machines, and the calm of a farm that thrived under careful guidance, he understood that life had a way of rewarding patience, kindness, and courage. The story that had begun with a simple act of helping a broken tractor had transformed their lives entirely. The father now had a place where he belonged, where his efforts were recognized, and where his child could grow up surrounded by love, opportunity, and hope. And as he closed his eyes that night, he felt a sense of peace he had never known, a peace born from connection, trust, and the quiet power of doing the right thing when it mattered most.